Welcome to Focus TV for our community today.
Hello, my name is John Brusso, and I'm the Program Director of Focus. Focus is a community prevention organization focusing on addiction in our area. And today we have the ability to speak with Gwendolyn Bork, the president of Focus. Hi, Gwen.
Hey, John, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking, and thanks for being here with us.
I appreciate that.
All right. Well, Gwen, tell us exactly what Focus is.
So FOCUS stands for our community, unity and support. It is an addiction prevention non-for-profit, or actually a coalition is what we really are. And a coalition is really a community-based structure. There's 12 components of what that coalition is made out of, or stakeholders as some would call it. And it's really, it was constructed based off of a Drug-Free Communities Act, AKA kind of program that the White House Office of Drug Control Policy put together in 1997. So in 97, they established the Drug-Free Communities Act, and it was through the White House Office of Drug Control Policy, and they said, what makes up a community? And to them, there were 12 voices of a community, and it ranges anywhere from, the private sector to the public sector. So we're talking businesses, schools, government, media, parents, youth, faith-based organizations, businesses, and all these people had a voice at the table. And our goals are really two things, and they line up with their goals. Number one, to establish and strengthen collaboration among our communities. That's number one. We want to collaborate with these people at the table in order to attack our second goal, which is to reduce substance use among our youth, and really over time adults. I mean, we know with addiction recovery, it's a long process. So if we can start in prevention, it has a lot to do with slowing that train over time. So that's what we do. We are serving strictly the Lancaster and Depew communities. So whatever those zip codes are for those two school districts, because our focus is on the youth ages 13 to 18, that's who our target audience is to create an impact on. But we need everybody at the table, young, old, business, private, public sectors, to make that happen.
All right. Well, this is a very difficult time with everything going on when you're trying to engage youth. So tell me, what is Focus doing now to help our community during these difficult times?
So, I mean, the goals are still the same, and we're not changing those goals. Collaboration within our community, if anything, right now, this public health crisis has accentuated that. We need each other. We know that our local resources, our tools, our people at the table, we're the ones that can solve our problems locally. So if we bind together locally, we help each other locally. And one thing I could say is Western New York at large, we are a giving and resilient population, and that's what we do. So the collaboration, if anything, is being even more focused on. We need the input of what's going on from all of our voices at the table, all seats at the table, and the goals are still the same, is to reduce that substance use. And we know that with this current health crisis, there's changes in structure on what you can do, where you can go, who you can see, how you can do it. Kids are working from home, parents are working from home, high levels of stress, anxiety of not knowing what's happening, what's going to happen next week, much less a month from now. So we are, if anything, pivoting and adapting to this current health crisis and putting ourselves even more at the forefront of hearing those voices at the table and providing tools and resources so that we continue to create and reduce those goals. So anything from going on webinars, and John, you know this, I mean, we've been on so many webinars lately, anything from how vaping could actually create more issues with the COVID virus, teens and anxiety, stress, you know, tools and resources we can provide our parents. I mean, we are nonstop trying to provide resources on our Facebook page, you know, getting kids to the table to help us with our social media to reach their demographic. So we are using our captivated audience as much as we can right now via virtual technology to connect and hopefully create a positive environment and hope for a positive change in coping mechanisms throughout this time.
Positive change. That's absolutely great. I'm sure that the focus group has some success stories. Give me 1, 2, 6, whatever you got. Tell us about it.
Sure. So I would say, you know, within the past 2 years, so really since Focus as a name hit the streets, I mean, we were able to bring people to the table that hadn't been there before, from 5 people to over 100 in the coalition, get private donations, specifically organizations like Goldberg Segala, an attorney firm, the MS Foundation, you know, we thank them for their support, Families Touched by MS, the Lancaster Teachers Association. We were able to become a 501c3, an official 501c3, which costs really anywhere between $2,500 to $3,500 to file within 3 months of our organization kind of being reborn, and I could get into that. But then within 6 months of us being into a full operation, we had county funding to help us survey all of our students in both school districts that we focused on, Lancaster and Depew. That could have been, I should say, a very huge cost to us. With that data, we were able to put together a federal grant, and not only put it together, submit it in its requirements, which is one huge, I'd say, barrier and obstacle to most people to be able to do that. It was about 100 pages overall. And then after we submitted it, we ended up getting it, you know? So, I mean, that's $625,000 over the next 5 years. That's 125 grand per year, which helps us stay cutting edge, become more or less specialists in our field, certified prevention specialists. And that gives us all the tools that we need to be effective in our community, evidence-based, data-driven. And then I'd say our last real amazing milestone was the fact that we did an awards, community impact awards ceremony at Salvatore's this past January, and we had almost 150 people there. I mean, we had other coalitions that we were supporting that we wanted to recognize. We had, you know, government officials. You know, you yourself, you were a huge partner with us as the Erie County legislator, and you know, you came in when you were elected, and you were just a force to reckon with as far as our support and partnership. So we recognized you, and it was cutting edge, and it was needed because our work goes on, and we're the type of people that, you know, kind of we just do, and we don't expect to receive any kind of recognition. And to have that many people show up in that room that day, all recognizing the work that we've done, I think is a good show of what is to come as an organization.
Well, that's absolutely true, and I was part of that evening, and that was you know, a great success for the first time that it was even attempted to be able to have that many people. It was fantastic, and the people in the room were quality people from this community. And the one thing I wanted to ask is the grant money that you receive from the federal government, that money comes directly for us here for the community, correct? Our Depew Lancaster community will see the impact and hopefully accept it well, the positive changes that we're trying to do. Is that correct?
Oh, 100%. I mean, when we submitted that, we had to input exactly how many residents comprised of specifically Lancaster and Depew, village or town, we had to submit how many youth, how many students, that demographic was very specific. And then we had to submit data. So the whole goal is, by receiving these funds, how are we going to how are we going to measure our impact in just our local community? And in order for us to show that impact, we had to have a preset of numbers. So that was our survey that we did in 2018, 2019 school year. And then in 2 years, we're going to do it again by utilizing, their tactics, their evidence-based strategies, their models, which is called the strategic prevention framework. But we use their framework. We know that it works. And actually, I had some of the stats. So since this program began, the Drug-Free Communities program has actually funded over 2,000 communities. It supports 4.4 million middle school age students, 6.3 million high school students, and altogether it represents 36% of all of our youth. So we know, based off of this, that every day 4,000 12 to 17-year-olds use drugs for the first time. 21% of high school students binge drink to dangerous levels. So that means that nationally, 35% of students grades 8 through 12 have reported vaping, and 40% of our kids have reported vaping just in Lancaster and Depew. So it shows, okay, what's our national average and what is happening right here in Lancaster, Depew. And we know that since September of 2019, the CDC reported 6 confirmed deaths and over 450 cases of possible lung illnesses in 33 states associated with e-cig products, most of them having to do with like THC or other type substances in those devices. So our goal is to look at the national data, look at our data right here in Lancaster, Depew, and make an impact. So that money trains us as certified prevention specialists. We will be those prevention specialists in the community. And I mean, Jen, you know this, that we're constantly getting training and webinars and one-on-one training as a condition of this grant, so we can be the most effective in tracking the data, measuring the data, and reducing those numbers. Again, if number one goal was to increase community collaboration, because we need everybody's help. It's not just the teachers, it's not just the parents, it's not just prevention providers like Kids Escaping Drugs. Everybody has to be at the table to do that one thing: reduce those numbers. We need to lower those numbers, and we will be able to show our effect on our community throughout this 5-year process in reducing those numbers.
So it's safe to say that we're trying to get our community to row the boat in the right direction and in the same direction, no matter what waves we hit, this COVID-19,
Right.
all these things that are issues. We're trying to still stay focused, which is why the name is really cool, I think,
Yeah.
on the data, and the data being the most important part. I really think that maybe you could tell us a little bit about getting the data and getting the approval from Superintendent Raby and Superintendent Valley from those schools, because without that data, there's no money coming into our area to actually, for us to be as positive, make a positive impact.
Yeah, it's effective.
Correct?
That's right. Oh yeah. I mean, that was a potentially, or could have been, a very major barrier to us being effective. Anybody could, say, well, we could do this and that and this is what the kids need, or we could say that we could do this and that's going to make a change. But no, there are evidence-based, data-driven strategies that we could use. And without the data, we wouldn't have that baseline. We wouldn't have, where we were. And one thing that I definitely, hats off to, Superintendent Valley and Dr. Raby. They didn't know who I was at all. I came stormtrooping in there as the president, and had awesome support from a state-backed agency that helps coalitions launch. And I was following their guide and some of my other experience to implement this this trajectory that would have been effective moving forward. But I could not have done it really without their support. I needed them. I needed their willingness, their partnership, to come alongside and hopefully have an agreement and a working relationship moving forward. So I do. I am so appreciative and so thankful for those two leaders and visionaries and knowing how important this was in allowing us to get that baseline level with our kids, for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Tell us about your qualifications. I mean, you've got a unique story, as I have learned, and why don't you give us a little bit of your background and your qualifications to be the president of Focus?
Well, as far as how I even came to be the leader of this organization, or my personal experience, I have just been following my heart and my passion for really helping others and to hopefully prevent them from going down, a very destructive road of addiction. I mean, my personal experience in my life is, I bounced around a lot as a kid. I was in a different school district every 6 months. Like, you know, I know what it's like to be the new kid, to get bullied. I know what racism and hate crimes, I know what that feels like, being an all-white girl in a black school. I know what it's like to live in poverty, to have divorced parents, living with a single father that, worked his butt off so that we could even have, a dinner, a good dinner on the table on a Sunday. Not having new clothes, not having Christmas presents. By the time I was, 15, so much of that had kind of caught up to me that I left home and I experienced things ranging from, so much trauma that anybody could experience, from domestic violence, physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, rape, turn into me, instead of dealing with it, turning to drugs and alcohol, that by the time I was 18, I basically had given up all hope and was pronounced dead at the scene of a car accident off the S-curves, on Delaware Avenue, and had a near-death experience. And I saw the other side of life. And, I didn't believe in God at the time, but I saw a life that I took advantage of, and people I took advantage of, and, rejected the things within me that could have done better. And I called out to God to help me, and thank God he came and showed up that day and told me I had to go back. I knew he showed me what happened to my car, and I had a rough road ahead of me. And if I didn't have that precursor that there was a purpose for me, I don't think I would have fought to stay alive at ECMC. I mean, I was in ICU for weeks. I was in the hospital over a month. My nose was demolished. My arm and hand was demolished, needing 8 screws. I broke 2 of my left ribs that punctured my left lung. I broke, my bones in my right ankle and my leg, and they gut me. I mean, they split me open and took my spleen out, my gallbladder out, a section of my large intestines. I mean, because of this, my body was broken. They had doctors coming in from every angle trying to save my life. And I knew, though, that my life was worth fighting for, because there were other people that needed me. There were other people that were probably going through the same stuff that didn't know how to get out. And ever since that happened, when I was 18 years old, I'd done anything that I could to put myself out there and offer this beacon of hope to others, that no matter what they went through in their life or what they're in the middle of, that they can overcome, which led to becoming a published author by the time I was 24. And through that book, I've launched so many series and seminars on certain topics that help people get through those traumas and barriers in their life, to becoming ultimately a co-founder of my first non-for-profit called I Know, where we were an addiction recovery non-for-profit. And I worked one-on-one with clients in addiction. I was a certified life coach. I had an advanced certificate in crisis response and trauma care. I wrote programs. I created seminars and workshops with other addiction specialists that we would bring on the road, anywhere from doctors with Buffalo Medical Group to 291 Elm. I was subcontracted by Lakeview. They're down in Jacksonville, Florida, a multi-million-dollar addiction facility that hired myself and my partner as consultants to help them with their addiction recovery space down in Florida. to becoming New York State certified in addiction. I'm a trainer. I work with people in the state to get trained on addiction. I train and implement addiction recovery coaches, and I don't know how many people I've trained to be addiction recovery coaches until now, but I launched a successful addiction recovery non-for-profit to where this working in a prevention was only the most logical next step. So when I was asked to step in as the president and sworn in, December of 2017, when it was go time, January 1st, or, January of 2018, it was it. It was like, let's go. How are we going to help these kids and make a difference? Because I know what it's like to be in their shoes. And I think having that experience connects me to them. And then having the credentials in the addiction space helps me be effective, not only in this field, but, also with our parents. And what, people don't know is that this isn't my full-time job. I've been doing this on a volunteer basis for the past couple of years. It's just my passion. And, I ultimately got involved in this when I launched my financial advisory practice. I had the ability finally to get out there and, try to be my own boss, to have flexibility, to build something that was my own. My dad died in 2015, and it really hit me hard because although we had our ups and downs, he was my best friend and he was my rock. And to see him die, he was a captain of the Army and ex GM employee back in the day, to Erie County Sheriff. Like, he had all the time in the world to enjoy his life, but like his role serving the community defined him, and he didn't want to let that go, which he ended up ultimately dying in active duty. And I didn't want to die working for a company that, although an amazing job, it wasn't my calling. So I took that leap of faith to become a business owner in order to have flexibility, serve my community. And the more that I built, the more time that I would have and more resources I would have to make an impact on my community.
Well, that's a lot of qualifications. And I know firsthand what I think that you may have left out is your relatability to the youth of our community. And tell us a little bit about, and some of the things that you said before are the reason why you relate so well to kids, because but you just seem to understand them at their level, and that is so important. Tell us a little bit why you think you get along and you relate so well with the adolescents of our community.
I mean, if we are willing to put ourselves into their shoes, right? Like, that is the epitome of empathy, and putting yourselves in their position, seeing their view from their eyes, working with them. Their trauma these days are no different than my trauma, in my days, and their pressures are no different than the social pressure I went through. It just seems different on the surface. So, I mean, I'm given the opportunity on a yearly basis to go into the Depew High School, and I talk to all of the kids in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade at the high school level with their health class. And, it's like they see, when you're real, kids know that. When you're faking, they know it. And they know I'm real, because why sugarcoat things? Why pretend to be something that I'm not? I've been there. I've been through the war. I've been through the trenches. I know the pressures we have as women or young women. I know what we have is fitting in the peer circles and the social structures. I know what difficulties parents have gone through. My parents went through it. I saw it. I didn't get it, And I think when you're real and you're transparent, and you really care, kids pick up on that. And every time I've been able to talk with them, I give them my phone number, I give my email address, like, here guys, this is what I'm doing. Like, this is for you. This coalition is not about me. This isn't like, Gwen's redemption, to make the world a better place and put a little notch on my belt, right? Like, this is like I'm a musician. I turned on 3 recording contracts. I had Capitol Records. I had EMI Records in 2004. And when I was ready to pull the trigger with Sony Records, and everybody loves music and kids love music. I don't think that's ever changed. I'm still a musician to this day, but when I was ready to sign a contract in 2004 with Sony Records on the East Coast, and I got a phone call. I was supposed to fly out in 2 weeks, and I got a phone call saying that my son's father died in a car accident. So my little baby boy, my first son, he was 3 months old, and his dad died. And I looked at my son, and I thought, there is no way in hell I'm going to take this kid on tour with me. And I decided at that point to let go of my ambitions of a music career, make the best use of what I can with my talents right here. And I put my kid first and a normal life for him first, but I still do music. I still, I play out all the time. I use technology. I love technology. I've grown into technology. So I guess I can relate to these kids because they have all these tools at their fingertips to explore who they are. And I think that I'm at least at a level where I was brought into that technology and I follow it and I'm still with it to be able to help them kind of create that positive image even for themselves.
Great. And that's the great thing that I enjoy about Focus is the fact that it is kid driven, and you're the face of the organization, and the organization needs to relate to the kids, and we get our ideas from the kids, which is great. And I think that's good. Let me ask you one last question, if I could. What do others need to do to get involved?
Sure. So you already hit the nail on the head. I may be the face right now and the fearless leader, trying to blow the trumpets and get the kids, to hear me out and to get involved. But like, we need the kids, like we need you guys, whoever is watching this video and potentially our podcast, as they come along, which we'll get into that, but we cannot do this without you. I may be in touch, but I can't pretend to know what you guys are going through. So youth, come to the table, because we can't be effective without you. We're not, going to be these adults pointing our fingers saying, well, you're going to do this and we're going to try this and you're just going to listen to us. No, the whole objective is this is supposed to be your organization. You lead it. You tell us what you want. You tell us what you need. And then us as community leaders, we're going to make it happen. As long as it falls within the lines of our goals and our objectives, which is really to give you guys purpose, to help build you and create you as the new leaders of Western New York. That's the goal. So number one, if you're a parent watching this, or and you have kids in school in Lancaster or Depew, get them involved. Help us. Reach out to us through Facebook, through Instagram, Twitter. We have all social media channels available for these kids to find us and to get involved. So if you're a parent of Lancaster Depew students, middle school or high school, we want your help. If at least to get your kids to the table, and again, we use technology to our advantage. So there's so many places for them, from creating digital content to marketing online through these social media channels to creating events. We're doing everything virtually these days. And why not? Why not use technology to our advantage? So help us get your kids to the table. Step two, I would say, if you're a parent, I know everybody thinks, there's no time and there's this and I'm working and I'm trying to teach my kids school. I get it, but there's no reason why you shouldn't know what's going on in your local community, and at least equip your kids with evidence-based data that's right there. Because my boys are teenagers now, 13 and 16, and as good of a person I think I am, and think that I'm a pioneer and trying to figure out what they need, I've noticed my kids, they move further and further away from me as they get older, and they're boys, maybe that's different, but they're looking to their peers for support. They're looking to their peers for advice. So you should at least equip yourself as a parent to know what's going on in their schools, know what's going on in their social circles by getting involved. And that doesn't mean that you have to show up to meetings all the time, but get your email list, get your email on the list so you can have resources at your fingertips, like our Facebook channel, so that you can see what's currently happening, what events or other things, at least options if you ever do want to get involved. And then I'd say, again, if you're any businesses that maybe you're so big that you don't have the time to get involved in our organization, but maybe you have financial support. I mean, just because we have this federal grant that helps us have an office and this and that, 90% of that money goes into what we are required to do to be effective and to report back ultimately on the money that we receive. So we lean heavily on private donations to implement some of these events in our community and help pay for the things like obstacle course bounce houses or a stage if we want to do a music event, to rent a stage or rent a food truck. That stuff you can't apply that with federal money. So if you're a bigger business that wants to give back strategically to your local community, Lancaster and Depew, or you are a Depew and Lancaster alumni, you own a business and you want to give back into this community, this is the best way to do it, is to send your financial support that way. And you will be recognized as that. And I would say, lastly, if you are any one of these 12 sectors, and you could go to our webpage, you can email us, you can talk to us to see, well, what 12 sectors are there and what voices do we already have at the table? Let me know, because as I said, it's anywhere from law enforcement to government to media to businesses, civic and volunteer groups, religious and fraternal organizations, parents. Parents, there's a sector just for you. And really, I mentioned it before, but we need you. We need you at the table. If you're not probably the second most important to youth being the most important, you're the second most important, because we know that what you say to your kids and what you let slide or what you condone or maybe what you're against and what you stand for has a direct impact on your kids. And we can't change this community without you. We can't change their perceptions without you. So parents, education, if you're a teacher, we already have both superintendents involved in endorsing what we do. We have SROs from, both school districts. I got our health teacher from Depew. We've got Academy of Finance teachers involved, SAD teachers, guidance counselors. If you're a nurse, anybody, if you're a teacher at either one of these two schools and you work with kids who are a part of a club that maybe you run and you want to help utilize what you guys are doing into our organization, that would be fantastic. Like, we have a spot for you at the table. And I think that is very, very important for people to know. Teachers, you right now are on the front lines of trying to deliver an education to kids that have so much distraction and so much pressure on them right now. Having your input, even at this time, makes a big difference. So I would say reach out to us I'm sure there is a place where you could fit, and you could contact either myself or you, John, and we'll find a place for you. And it could be anything from, like I said, monetary donations. If you have resources to offer us, whether it's meeting space or office chairs, we're still working on building a conference room table, networking, connections. If you know people that could connect us to somebody that we're looking for at that time, like food trucks, we're planning an event coming up here soon in the summer. So if you have connections, if you have people in your business that want to help and volunteer, the more involved you want to get is really up to you. But if you just want to stay informed, that's just as good also, and pass along information to your centers of influence. So it's really up to you, but I can guarantee you there's a place for every single one of you listening.
Well, that's great. And I want to thank you, Gwendolyn, for taking the time to educate us today. And look, actually, hopefully, we can do further podcasts down the line. I know that we've got some ideas to get the youth involved with the podcast and actually tweaking our skills at this because they're probably much better at it than we are. But just the fact that we're out there, the main keys that I took from this are that it's youth driven, it's community, our community, all getting together to fight and try to achieve a common goal. So I look forward to doing these podcasts, seminars, whatever, however we can do it in the future. And I want to thank you very much for your time. As always, your heart, your energy is just amazing, and happy to work with you to make a positive change. Thanks.
Well, thank you too, John. I know that it was a tough election. There was a lot that you achieved in the 2 years that it was 2 years, right?
Yes.
You're a legislator, yeah. So you achieved a lot in 2 years that you were in office as a county legislator, and that's how I really got to know you and see how you had a true passion and love for your community. And when you didn't get that next round, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't necessarily, I was sad, but I was happy because, hey, look at where you're at. You're now our program director, someone I know who is passionate for our community, passion for change, and the impact that you made in the past 2 years was, massive. So I just can't wait to see what you do over the next 5 years. So thank you for your help too.
Thank you. And to everybody out there, you have a good evening. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks.
Thanks, John. And just so everybody knows, we are getting ready to launch a podcast, and we're going to have videos launching on a weekly basis on all our social media channels. If you are someone who's interested in being interviewed, and we say someone who is in the Lancaster Depew community, if you've served in our community, if you've helped our community, if you work with our kids right now, or you yourself are a youth, please reach out to us and we'll set up a time where we can have an interview, and we'll make sure that your voices are heard and how you're dealing with this current economic and rural health crisis in our community. So thank you to everyone. Reach out to us to get involved, and we hope that you get to learn more about us as we move on in the future. Have a great day.